Welcome back, everyone, to the Ecopoder podcast. This is our sixth episode of the second season. We're very excited to be joined by our community organizers, leaders in the states. We have here Leslie and Cristal. Woo! Let's give them a round of applause. Give yourself a hello. We are very excited to be joined by y'all here today. Always happy to have you back on the podcast. If you haven't seen season one, they've already joined us before. So if you want to meet them from the beginning and hear some of those episodes, I would encourage you to go back and listen to those. But today we have a lot of things we're covering, right? There's a lot of things going on, and with extreme weather around the corner, hurricane season is here earlier than ever. We're grounding ourselves in the community and resistance and readiness in this episode so that you yourselves and your family know what to expect and know what's going on, right? We want to make sure you stay plugged in and connected. So, like I said, I'm honored to be joined by today two amazing leaders in our team in Georgia. So Cristal is our environmental organizer, just to reiterate who they are. She's been with us for a while now, very happy to have joined in the last year during our election cycle. She is an environmental organizer, like I said, connecting environmental justice with creative grassroots mobilizing. And then Leslie Palomino, of course, y'all know Leslie, force to be reckoned with, previous Poderosa, has been with Poder for a while now. Very grateful to still have you here. And so she's our Georgia State Program Director who is leading strategy and advocating and organizing efforts across the state, right, in Georgia, and then nationally helping out the rest of the teams. So you've heard from them both, like we said before here on the podcast. They've talked about civic engagement and policies and how they directly affect the Latinx community in Georgia. But today we're going to get into the nitty gritty of what that means. And they'll be updating us on policies that impact the Latinx community, how to stay safe during hurricane season, and ways that we can plug in so that y'all can join our movement, right? That's the whole point of this, is to make sure that you're listening, you get activated, and that you're ready. So with those elections around the corner, I want to first start us off by grounding us, give us a special shout out to anyone you've met recently, who is someone that you've either been inspired by or crossed paths with at a recent event or like a conference, a gathering. Who can we give a shout out to y'all today? Se lo paso a Leslie primero.
Thank you so much, Brianna, for having me back on to the Eco Bullet podcast. And hello, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. And someone that I do want to give a shout out to is Representative Marianne Santos. She is a representative of House District 117 in Georgia, currently serving her first term. And I'm just inspired of her because she is one of the only Latinas serving in the Georgia General Assembly right now. And so for her to be stepping into this action, to step into leadership, it's like a big honor. And I know like all of us, like my inner child, myself, and community members are looking up to her, and I look up to her. And I'm actually grateful that she had joined us for two events back to back. We held our, a community workshop at our office, and she came out to speak to, the volunteers to us and get an office tour. And the next day, she joined us for our citizenship workshop event once again to connect with the community members. So she's making time for us. And I appreciate those elected officials who make the time for their constituents, but for their constituency across, the entire state of Georgia, because although she may represent District 117, all the Latino population, all the Latinos are looking up to her as well. And so we thank her for her leadership.
So this was a little hard for me because, not gonna lie, this week was very productive. Everything from like the Public Service Commission hearing to being out in the community, meeting people at the Los Niños Primeros Youth Convention. It was so much, so interactive. But I feel like one story that really stuck out to me after the Mableton Day Festival that I had the honor to go and attend. I'm really thankful for Mayor Owens getting us a spot in the festival because I got to interact a lot with so many different diverse people. I met a father called Fit. He has five daughters and he immigrated from South Africa when he was 14. And now he's around, I believe, in his 40s. And he was the last person I spoke to before I broke down the table. And he said that he was really interested in the work that we do, even though he doesn't consider himself a Latino, he was really excited to hear that we are pushing to promote the Public Service Commission election, because a lot of people don't know about it. And he told me that, there's been moments where he has no electricity in his household because it costs money to turn it back on, more than to buy groceries sometimes. So he's been in his household, like, I think one time he said he was for a whole month without electricity. And to him, like, it was something that he could work with, because in Africa sometimes they don't have any electricity for like 2 weeks. So like he was accustomed to it. He would use candles, different methods to keep up with himself and keep his family happy. But he said, like, it was an important election because he didn't know that he had the option to vote for it. So he's like, oh, okay, I didn't know I could do that. No, I'll be definitely doing it. So it was really exciting to hear that input from him. And it was such a personal story. But yeah, so I'm really grateful for him. I don't know if he'll see this podcast, but this is for you, Fitz.
Thank y'all so much for starting us off with that. I feel, the two folks that you mentioned have very strong connections to the fact that the work that you're doing is inspired by what they're doing, right? Just by both leading us and telling us what is important and continuing to discuss in these spaces. And so again, thank you so much for just starting us off with that. The work that we do here at Bolet is very much inspired by our communities, and it's only going to continue if we see our community showing up with us. It's not easy doing this work, but together it makes it a lifelong journey to make it more sustainable for everyone, right? We have the capacity and ability to work together. So I appreciate y'all starting us off with that. So to build off, we want to be more interactive with our guest here at the Eco-Poled podcast. A couple of weeks back, we did share out on our social media. We asked you on Instagram on our stories, if you're not already following us, I'm going to shamelessly plug us. Make sure that you are following us on all platforms so you stay engaged. And when we do have these interactive segments, you're able to comment and engage with us. So we asked our guest and our audience, what comes to mind when you think of extreme weather? We just wanted to know what, right away, what comes to mind? What do people think of? Here are some of the comments displayed on the screen for our discussion today. We want to review some of those. I thought it was very fascinating because, they range from different perspectives depending on where someone is located, right? Some people mention heat. Some people mention hurricane. Others mention what happens and how to respond to it. I don't know if y'all want to engage or react to that real quick before we move on.
I'm glad that people were so interactive with that comment, because a lot of people, it's hard for them to know the difference between weather and climate, just in general. I remember learning that in school, actually, for my college classes, and it was such an impactful class because, like, I didn't know there was even a difference myself. Like, weather is something that's temporary. It's something like you just walk out of your front door and that's the weather that's right there going on. If it's raining, if it's sunny, if it's cloudy. And climate is more like a 30-year span, about 30-year span, determination of what's going on with the planet itself, which is where climate change comes from. And what's funny is, like, they do have a relationship with each other, because as climate change gets worse and the heat increases and there's more gas in our atmosphere, that does determine how the weather is going to be on our daily basis, which is where extreme weather comes from. And extreme weather could be like unpredictably a hurricane, and you're just like, wait, it's like the middle of the summer. We don't usually have hurricanes at this time, but now your state is being affected, and there was one yesterday, and now there's going to be another one 2 days from now. It's like that's where extreme weather comes from, or even an earthquake, things that just aren't predictable, that aren't common in your state occurring.
I do want to add that, Georgia is one of those states that does get impacted by hurricanes as well. Like last year and like the years before, like we've been hit with hurricanes in South Georgia, in the coast. And Hurricane Helene had hit us last year, and it was like late September 2024. And, we're working during an election season, of course. And I do recall this impacting the time frame around when it was, the voter registration deadline, and also like early voting and those days that are impacting, that that. And, I remember the Secretary of State not really being considerate of extreme weather affecting those election dates. And, but thanks, Brianna.
Yeah, thank y'all for sharing that perspective. Because I too, for a long time, when I heard the word extreme weather, I would just think of like heat. As someone who lives like on the coast in the West Coast, it's like I'm not impacted by hurricanes. And the more and more that I'm learning about this, I'm realizing that word means many different things to different people, depending on where they live, what regions, what's the climate like in that space. And for the broader advocacy around extreme weather, right? Like those are conversations I think we need to start spreading and making sure that we inform people. Because yes, policy that affects folks on one end of the United States might not be affecting other folks because of what the climate looks like, but that's important to consider all in between the above, right? Just so that we're better prepared for these extreme weather events. And like Cristal said, it's unpredictable. So it's like having the conversations to be proactive versus reactive. So I really appreciate anyone who engaged with us on those comments. Like I said, we will be putting out more interactive segments for you to engage. So just check those out. Look out for those so that you can be more engaged. But to segue into our first question for today, I really want to know, what are the current environmental policies or threats in Georgia that are directly impacting our community, the Latinx community to be specific, and what should people be paying attention to right now?
Yeah, if I can jump in first, I want to talk about a win that we just received in Georgia, and this is the closure of the bio lab. So last year, September 29th of 2024, there was a major fire that erupted from the bio lab. This was a chemical company. So this was near Conyers, Georgia, one of their Georgia plants. And there was pool chemicals that were being released into the air. And keep in mind, we had canvassing efforts. People woke up early that morning and sending pictures of like the smog, like the air, like you could not see the roads clearly in Georgia when this biolab chemical leak happened. And the fire actually prompted, the evacuation of the residents, asking people to shelter in place. So many people were impacted. People had to go to the hospitals. These were hazardous conditions, and people weren't allowed to turn on their air condition. So most recently, like 2 weeks ago, they announced that they are, closing down this bio lab. And I'm just like glad that that's something that was able to happen through people power, because it was a coalition that came together of different environmental organizations who, they held press conferences, they protested, they rallied, they showed up. And to look them up, you can go to shutdownbiolab.com to read more about it. But that's just a big win that I wanted to highlight on this podcast. And I'll pass it to Cristal, who can talk about the Public Service Commission.
Thanks, Leslie. That's a really good way to start off a conversation, because like the idea of the biolab, you know, let's be honest, like US is really big into capitalism, and this is the best place to start a business. And Georgia specifically is, I've been told, is one of the best places to start a business. It's like known for small business owners, known for corporations to be able to grow. And I can see the benefits to the way it helps the economy, the way that having businesses is good also for citizens. But it's harmful in the way that there are no regulations. Sometimes there are no limits to, for example, how much chlorine you can use in your chemicals, what type of chemicals are you allowed to put in them. And that's with all businesses. There's just a lack of things that you can put in your products. And I think restrictions should occur, which is why it's so important that people go out to vote. And, that leads into the Public Service Commission, because the Public Service Commission in the state of Georgia, they are responsible for how much you pay for your utilities, electricity and gas. They are also responsible for how much green energy is going to be installed in the state of Georgia. And they are responsible for the safety of transportation in the state of Georgia. So that's a lot of responsibilities. And I like to always let people know, like, you can go and meet these people. Like, I think Tim Eccles has a meeting on June 12th where you can go and actually talk to him and ask him questions, see what work he's done. You can also go to Public Service Commission hearings and sit and just listen to the way it works. Or if you can't leave your house, you can watch it on YouTube while you're working or while you're washing dishes, because they upload all their videos. You can go out and vote because election is actually happening right now. It's early election season. It's up to June 13th. That'll be the last day to vote early wise for the primary election. And then the actual date will be on June 17th. Yeah. So I know it's a lot going on, but it's really important to stay active. But yes, early election is started on the May 27th, and it will end on June 13th, and the actual day will be on June 17th.
Awesome. And we'll make sure to add those details as well into the description so y'all can check that out for more information on how you can get more information based off of what we just shared, but also just understand like what does that all encompass. But from what I'm hearing is that people power is working. More than ever, we're holding leaders and policymakers accountable for what constituents want to make sure that both their livelihood is being thought about, but our overall well-being. And I hope that you're listening in on this and you really start to consider and understand that these folks who are taking lead and making sure that our environment is being protected or even just our well-being, they need to hear from you. At the end of the day, it's important that you keep them accountable. And so with that being said, with hurricane season approaching, what are practical steps that our community itself can take to make sure that it's prepared? And what should they know about staying safe when a storm is either happening or after? I want to make sure that we're also preparing our listeners to not only hold people accountable, but make sure that they themselves can stay safe as well.
Thank you for asking that great question, because it's really good, since, as Leslie mentioned earlier, there was a hurricane that recently occurred, and there's some people still having to deal with that hurricane. Some people lost their homes. I know someone who is close to my family, and their grandparent lost their home, and they didn't want to leave their house. So it was like there's a whole issue within their family where they're like, we're trying to get a grandparents out of the house, but they do not want to leave the house. So it is important to know how to prepare yourself. First of all, insurance is really important, especially as homeowners, as renter. It's important to have insurance. It's also important to know what resources your community already provides for you. There are some counties that representatives do provide information about resources. For example, we had the chance to sit down with Lucy Macbeth, and she had pamphlets that it provided information and resources about what to do during a extreme weather or a hurricane event. But in general, one of the best ways you can definitely prepare yourself is by having a solar block, like a solar charging block. You can purchase them anywhere. I think Ace Hardwares, or you can purchase them at Walmart. Many places have them. It's pretty much really good for you to charge your phone. It works with charging your laptop, and it's solar based, so it's perfect. Another one is to make sure to have clean water and preserved food. Specifically, I hate to say it, but plastic water bottles will be your best friend in these moments, and canned food that has preservation in it. And those are the top two that I recommend. Of course, a first aid kit. Always have that bad boy. I actually carry one in my car because you never know.
I just want to add that, like, stay informed with the news. And our governor usually posts his statements when there is a state of an emergency. So that's most often how I find out as well, is following them. And I mean, as Cristal highlighted, like, see what resources are available within your counties.
It had just occurred to me last minute, when my family was affected by Hurricane Helene in Augusta, Georgia. One of the biggest things that they were dealing with was getting gas. They could not find gas anywhere. We drove like an hour and a half out of the city of Evans, to go find gas because we needed it for like our blower, we needed it for it to cut trees, we needed it to for our cars. We didn't realize how important it is to have gas. So definitely having a tank available in your, sitting in your garage or outside, just one for emergency reasons.
Yeah, and I would definitely add to that, like in these cases, like we said, we don't know when they will happen, but that's the thing is you need to be over prepared and have things ready. Just like in California, like we talk about the earthquake kit, like everyone should have an earthquake kit ready and at standby because those are things we just don't know when the fault lines are going to move. We don't know when hurricanes are going to come in and like like clear out entire communities, right? So like being prepared always ahead of time. You definitely gave us a lot to think about there. I even myself, I'm like, I haven't checked out our earthquake kit here for like anything that might happen. I would think I also say like checking batteries, right? If you create these kits, make sure that they still work, make sure that your food's not expired, things like that. Just make sure that when you get to the point of having to use them, que trabajan, que no nomás están ahí alzados. We want to make sure that they're useful and ready to be used. So with that being said, can y'all kind of share with us a little bit more? I know you recently went to climate action campaign training that was completed in the state of Georgia for a lot of other environmental organizers. I'm curious, what did you learn there? What did y'all kind of touch on that you brought back to the state and your organizing?
Just to provide a summary, so Climate Action Campaign is a vibrant coalition. It's driving ambitious, durable, equitable federal action to tackle the climate crisis. This is by cutting carbon pollution and accelerating the transition to clean energy. And that is how we will improve public health and create a more resilient economy and a more sustainable future for all. So that's a gist of, what the climate action campaign is. And, three of our staff members were able to join on this training. And for us, it was a good recap about how to, expand more on our social media efforts, and how to reach, the youth and even older generations to talk about climate. We also discuss, the state targets and, internal targeting that we are doing to ensure that, our elected officials at the federal level, are having climate on top of mind, especially with the current budget reconciliation process as well.
That was great input. I think something I would definitely highlight from that event is how we also got to practice the proper way to not just communicate with the youth or audience or older audience in social media, but how to communicate with our official electors, like people who are commissioners, those who are on the Public Service Commission, our senators, our mayors, how to have like professional conversations about what we care about as an organization, like how to have a conversation about immigration, how to have a conversation about environmental laws and policies that we're concerned about, or even economic policies in the right atmosphere, and also how to reach their staff or like their group and team. It was really insightful. It was a great meeting for organizations that do the work that we do.
Nice. That sounds really refreshing, especially to do the work that you do, right? Sometimes you're the expert in your field, but to connect with others and really have that validating moment, I think is important. So I was very excited to hear more about what happened there and what we can bring back. I'm excited for the CAC to continue to support Poder Latinx, just like at this podcast, right? They will definitely help us guide where this conversation needs to go when it comes to some of the environmental justice work that we're doing in our states. So big shout out to the CAC. We appreciate you all as always. But I do want to go to a quick commercial break just so that we can share more about who the CAC is, and also we'll come back and finish up some of the questions. This episode was produced in partnership with Climate Action Campaign. For more information on climate wins and how to defend our climate, please visit www.actonclimate.com. Thank you, and now back to the episode. Awesome. So with that being said, what should our community know about the reconciliation bill? This just happened, right? This is all in time, in real life. We're here It's June 2nd, y'all. Happy Pride Month, by the way. There's a lot happening. There's a lot of things just moving so fast. And so we want to be able to explain this to y'all, our listeners. What do we know about the reconciliation bill and the upcoming Public Service Commission, the PSC primary that's happening in Georgia? What should our folks know? Why should they care? How do they get involved? Se lo paso a Cristal.
Yeah. So I do think it's important that we like divide these two spaces for the moment. First, start off talking about the reconciliation bill. It's also important to acknowledge that it's something very recent, something we're all still very much learning about. Especially everyone else and us as an organization. But some important things to think about and to consider when it comes to the reconciliation bill is that it does create big changes for the Medicaid program and the Affordable Care Act, which could impact healthcare access for many Georgians. Um, there's a couple important websites that we can gear you guys towards too as well. But some cool facts or information about it is that it will have the ways and means provision of the bill are projected to cost $3.8 trillion with 7.7 trillion in tax cuts and 3.9 in tax offsets in the next 10 years. Um, that does create a lot of change within the tax system of the United States. They will also have the child tax credit. They're going to move it from $2,000 to $2,500 per child until 2028. After that, it'll return down to $2,000, depending on inflation. So those are two interesting facts about it. My biggest one that I definitely want to mention is that the reconciliation bill cuts federal employee retirement benefits, and it also cuts federal benefits in general, which I personally think it's something important to consider because as a federal employees, they're the ones who make our world go round. They're the ones who make the system work properly. So those are some three interesting facts to definitely consider about the reconciliation bill. Um, this is a great segue to talk about the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, because the Inflation Reduction Act does also have to do with taxes. The Inflation Reduction Act, it helps build a fair tax code. The bill addresses the problem of corporate tax avoidance, first of all, and it also creates an incentive for the everyday person to want to go into clean energy. That means like purchasing an electric vehicle or changing your old thermostats to new modern ones that can help you turn off your heat and your AC just to the touch of your phone. Kind of cool because my mom has it, so I know about that. Or using solar panels, for example. Anything that is considered clean energy, they give you a tax write-off for that. It also did, which in sense reduces greenhouse gas pollution, but it also enhanced and strengthened the Affordable Care Act, meaning that there was caps on prescription drugs. It made insulin more affordable. It made health insurance more affordable as well. So they kind of have, there's a correlation between them. And I think it's really important to know how to divide those two. And that really goes into like why it's so important to go out to vote and be aware of what's going on in the policies of your community and your state, which is another perfect way to segue into the Public Service Commission.
So I just wanted to elaborate a little bit more about, the budget reconciliation. And so this bill is known as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, HR 1. What a name, right? It has such I don't even know what word to use for this title of the bill, but basically this comprehensive legislation, it aims to implement the current president's agenda. So the tax reductions, the spending cuts, and significant increase in the debt ceiling. And so a lot of this is being discussed and debated in Congress right now. So the best thing to do is to contact your senator. This has already passed the House. So you're not going to contact your specific U.S. House representatives, you are going to contact your U.S. Senate senators. You have two. There's two in each state. Right now is the best time to contact them to, explain what you think about the bill, how they should vote. Like, this is the time that you should be reaching out to them. You can send them an email. You can visit their district office. You can call their district office. They have one based in Georgia. They have one in DC. Contact them. All those phone numbers, emails, you can find them online. You can go to their website as well. And they're all listed on there. And so the environmental provisions in this budget reconciliation, it does represent a significant shift away from the current clean energy initiatives and the environmental protections. So the bill focuses on deregulation and fossil fuel expansion, which it's raising concerns among environmental groups and, some lawmakers. So it's just really important right now that, you contact your senators, and you share how you feel about this bill. Many of us who depend on Medicaid, we need reliable health care. So balancing the federal budget must not come at the expense of those who depend on these benefits for their health and economic security. So again, this bill, is cuts to essential programs, healthcare at risk, environmental rollbacks, and so many additional things that I just wanted to add on to that. So contact your U.S. senators. That's the key thing here. The most recent news with the Public Service Commission election is that there was a candidate who was disqualified, and that person is Daniel Blackman, who served as the former U.S. Environmental Protection Agency regional administrator. They were initially disqualified from the Democratic primary for District 3 due to residency concerns. And for us, it's very concerning because this comes after 2 full days of early voting that people in, the state of Georgia went out to go vote already. And, whom they voted for, we don't know. But the fact that there was a candidate that was already on the ballot, and so those votes aren't being counted for, it is, a big concern for us. However, the latest news on that end, it was that Daniel Blackman has appealed the decision, and a Fulton County Superior Court judge has allowed him to remain on the ballot pending the outcome of the appeal. So within that primary, that includes other Democratic candidates as well. And just to also emphasize that, Apple de Latinx, we do not endorse candidates, but what we do encourage is for people to go out to vote in elections. And when their votes aren't being accounted for, that is when it becomes a problem. And that is what the advocacy that we do here at Apple de Latinx. And so there are 2 seats that are up for election in this Public Service Commission election. So that is District 2 and that is District 3. So there are candidates that are on the ballot from both political parties. So you can go onto my voter page, that is mvp.sos.ga.gov, to look up what your ballot looks like. You get your sample ballot, and on your sample ballot, it will list out all of those candidates. So you can do, research on the candidates that are on the ballot, so you can make an informed decision. So that's just something that I wanted to highlight because, it's very concerning, like the quick turnaround and then the cancellation or the disqualification. And so it's just good that we inform voters now that that person is someone who is back on the ballot.
Yeah, of course. Anything else you want to add, Cristal? I will say, and that's in the importance of keeping these folks accountable, right? People are making decisions. They're out there running the show. But when do as constituents, when do we have a say? How many people are not even aware that this is happening, right?
100%. And what's really a cool fact is that Georgia is one of the fewest states in the nation that you can elect for your Public Service Commission board. A lot of states, they appoint their boards. they don't get to vote. Definitely go out there, make sure your voice is heard. Just as much as that we can vote for people, we can vote for laws and policies as well. So because I do know there are other elections occurring depending on what county you are. And as Leslie mentioned earlier, District 2 and 3 are out for to be reelected on, but it does not matter where you're from in the state of Georgia. So you don't have to be from District 2 or from 3 to vote in the election. It's within the whole state. So when you go, the ballot will look the same for everybody. If you vote for the primary election, you do have to choose what party you're interested in, and then it would pop up on who's in that party so you can vote for them. It is a little different compared to the general election. So whoever ends up winning to get on the ballot from the primary will move on to the general election. I like to make sure to clarify that because it's important that we know the difference between those two elections and why it's such a year thing rather than a one-day thing.
Yeah, no, and I think that's important details to share, right? And I've said it here before. I feel like Georgia has very like specific, detailed directions and like how would I say parameters for who, and sometimes some elections it's kind of funky. Sometimes I'm like, wait, what? Like that you literally, making it impossible for people to vote almost. And I understand why people are like, the next one, I'll get to it, right? But no, we need to like redo that whole attitude when it comes to some of these elections. You're just telling me now that, Georgia is one of the few folks that actually decide who is in their public service commission and for other folks to be handpicked. And then we talk about why we're not happy with things and the way that they are. This is proof right here, y'all. This is the space where you got to take action. So what I'm hearing from the responses that y'all shared with us today, for the community in Georgia, it's essential to understand both the reconciliation bill and like many other states, right? There's a lot happening with that. But for the upcoming Public Service Commission's primary, it has a direct impact together, both of them, on our daily lives. Everyday things that we're undergoing, that we're feeling that we have an impact from, it's because of who is making those decisions. So I would say, y'all, like we've said it here before, it's always going to be people over profit. Billionaires are gaining billions while the rest of us are struggling. The rest of us don't even have the answers sometimes. Why do you have to make a decision whether putting on the light or the heat in your home, or even the AC now that the summer's coming around? But like, you shouldn't be making these decisions whether to keep your, yourself fine and versus eating or paying a bill. These are decisions that people are making every day now that our economy is getting tighter. But billionaires don't have that. They don't even have to have that discussion. They can buy and purchase whatever they want because we're allowing it. And so this is a call to action. This is why it's so important to show up and vote. Like we said it already here at Poder Latinx, Leslie said beautifully. This is our chance to choose leaders who will fight for us and keep energy affordable, keep our environmental justice at the forefront of discussions. Because at the end of the day, we want healthier and futures for all communities, right? Not just the Latinx community. Like Cristal said earlier today, the guest that you met at an event recently, they were so happy to see us doing the work that they're doing. But this issue impacts many of us. It impacts so many communities, so many of our neighbors. So with that being said, I am going to jump into the next question first that I have. What is an environmental way of grounding yourself in this work? It's very heavy. It can be, overwhelming to continue to talk about why our well-being matters at the policy level, at the at the level of where leaders are profiting off of people not being okay, right? So what can we say to that?
That's a very good question because I feel like when we want to de-stress, sometimes it involves a lot of money. Like we want to go to the fair, we have to pay for the ticket. If we want to go watch a movie, we have to pay for a ticket. Even crafts, you have to buy the materials. So like it's already, you're already giving your money to the corporation. So like you're in your brain, you're like, okay, how can I be sustainable? And how can I help my mental health without inputting more money into the corporations that are already helping me? Because like, as you said, a lot of these elections, like a lot of these people on these boards are choosing profit over the people. And that is what the Public Service Commission is doing. So that's why it's important to go vote. So in order to balance ourselves, a big thing that you can do is go to thrift stores. This is what I do. So there is a thrift store here in the state of Georgia called Scraps Atlanta. I'm an artist on the side. So I need to find materials that are affordable, and I need to find materials that don't hurt the planet and that don't already like give money to the corporations that are not helping my community and helping the everyday person. And Scraps Atlanta, they receive donations from people who are done with their crafts. So, like if you're sewing a dress and you have leftover fabric, they'll donate it to Scraps Atlanta. If they created a pot and they have leftover clay, they'll donate that. So you get to go into Scraps Atlanta and buy those pieces from them at a lower price and reused, which is awesome because I am very much into like clay right now. I am making like cups and plates and whatever I can and using resin to like cover it up so it lasts forever. So crafts is very good for your mental health, I believe. Another one that's most of the time affordable is gardening. Um, I feel like if you can find a community center or a community farm in your city. I know if you're in the city of Atlanta, True Living Well Center, they give you compost for free, and you can start your compost bin immediately. You can combine it with your soil, and then you can put your plants in it. So like that's really helpful. Um, Sometimes I don't even have the tools to like I don't have a shovel, so I use tongs to like flip my compost bin. You know, you just gotta be innovative. You can still do it. You can be sustainable and not give money to the corporation. You just have to critically think through the path. And it's good skill sets to have because it helps you critically think.
I will share something that I do is I garden. I've been gardening a lot. It does help me unwind and like relieve stress. And just spending time outdoors, it's just so helpful for me. So like you'll always like you can catch me outside, you can catch me on an adventure. That's why I always go by this like mantra lately, and it's like adventures and advocacy. Like that's me. That's who Leslie is.
I appreciate that. Definitely been talking about having a green thumb recently too. I'm gonna give a shout out to Cristal. She's our multimedia associate and she also gardens. And we were talking about how easy it is just to like start a garden from like scraps in your kitchen. So I appreciate y'all kind of touching on this, like being both resourceful. It doesn't have to be expensive. Um, I think self-care and like grounding yourself in this work has become like in line with like capitalism, but you don't have to, right? You don't have to overconsume things. It can be very simple, making your everyday life just a little bit more relaxed and in that way. But yeah, I definitely will say if you can and you have the opportunity, start your own garden, join other initiatives as well. Like Cristel said at the beginning, what are other folks doing that you can support the work that they're doing? And it both creatively and in a way will help your mental health, right? So I did want to ask, I know Cristal recently as well, you had a recent interview. Can you tell us a little bit about how that was for you? What did you want people to know and what did you hope that our audience really heard from that as well?
Yeah, so the interview was pretty amazing. I really thank Patrick. He was the reporter who created a safe space for me to express myself and to really feel like the connection of why I do this work. uh, we were at a conference, and everyone who was in that conference really cares about the election, really cares that clean energy are options for us, and cares about the energy burden. Um, it's important to know that there's a lot of people in our state that do have to choose between having to pay the mortgage or having to pay the rent and then choose the electricity. Like they don't know what's more important, because you're like, okay, so we need shelter. So clearly we have to pay the rent, but that means this month I won't be able to pay electricity. So, and like that's hard and that's not fair. And I experienced that growing up. I was raised by a single mother, my brother and I. There were moments where, like you'll see in the news report where I mentioned that we had to shower in the dark. There were moments when not just the electricity was cut off, but the heater, like the gas was cut off. So we had to like find other ways to warm up our water or shower in cold water, like solutions that we shouldn't have had to deal with. And there were moments when I saw my mother cry in her bedroom, or I could hear her, and I didn't understand why. I didn't understand like why she was having such a hard time. And like as I got older, I was like, it started to slowly click, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the pain that she had to feel. That who did she talk to? She couldn't talk to us. Like, who backed her up? Like, the state didn't care. So like, I wanted people to get the message to get from that news media release is that it does affect your daily life. Because why did my mom have to pick up extra shifts to pay for our school supplies? And that type of stuff is not fair. And I wanted people to understand that Black, Brown, Indigenous, whoever you are, if you have the privilege to go and vote, take it, use it, because there are people out there who cannot vote. People like back then, my mother could not. She's a U.S. citizen now, but back then she could not vote. So it is a privilege in this country to be able to vote, and it affects your finances, affects your health, your mental health, and it affects your grandpa, your grandma, your sister, everyone you could ever think of. But that's what I wanted people to get from that story. Thanks for highlighting that.
Cristal, you mentioned something that is really great, and we just held a climate loteria event on May 24th. And during this time, we played loteria. We had, a loteria design board that was created by Asian American Advancing Justice. So shout out to them. It was a great game, but most importantly, Cristal put together a PowerPoint about the Public Service Commission. And one of those slides asked, what to consider when voting. And one of those questions was, are you a Georgia Power customer? And so that's something that I'm going to leave, the viewers with is like every 3 years, the Public Service Commission approves Georgia Power's rate changes. And since 2008, they've signed off on millions of dollars in increases, making your power bills higher. So please make sure that y'all go out to vote during this Public Service Commission election.
Thanks for adding that. And I mean, to actually go to the hearings, there will be some in June this month. You really get to see a new perspective of life and how the system works. Because I saw companies there that I didn't even think had to relate with Public Service Commission, like your utilities. I mean, MARTA was there, Walmart was there, Georgia Power was there. And I think one of the things I remember when I was just like sitting and listening, I was like, wait, why is Walmart here? That was an interesting fact. And the Public Service Commission makes a space for them to speak. So kind of like how I went up and I was able to speak and talk to them, Georgia Power gets to do that, Walmart gets to do that, MARTA gets to do that. They get to go up there and talk for as long as they want about what they need to be proved.
I appreciate y'all for sharing that, because I, earlier was saying like holding leaders accountable and policymakers, but at the same time, I feel like as Poder Latinx, we have a huge part in making sure that we're also creating space for our audience, for our comunidades, right? To empower them and keep them accountable of also using their voice. Because I think this works both ways. Like you're saying, the billionaires, Walmart, they're showing up, but who is showing up for us? Are we making sure that we're organizing ourselves for people power to use their voice? Because like y'all are saying very clear here, the rates for Georgia's power keeps going up, but is there any room for discussion on whose this is impacting? Because at the end of the day, it's only making the billionaires' wallets get bigger. And for us, what's happening to us, right? What choices are people having to make that we're not even considering or bringing up in the larger conversation when it comes to making sure that people's livelihoods are protected, rates aren't going up in a drastic way. But like I said here before, and in many other times, we invite y'all to register to vote with Poder Latinx. Use your voice. You can go to Poder Latinx/vote to make sure that you're registered, that your familia is registered, that folks know and that they are ready to use that voice when elections come around the corner. So thank y'all for really explaining that for us. For me, a lot comes up when you all talk about this, right? Because I have done, like a lot of y'all as well, we've been a part of different spaces that intersectionally advocate for many issues, right? But I feel like I always come back to the environment. We can talk about all of the other issues that are impacting Latinx people, but then it comes back to the environment. How is the well-being, the everyday well-being of our people, how does that relate to the environment? And I feel like y'all did a perfect job of explaining that today with us and some of the bills that are coming up. So to close this out, I want to ask y'all to both, if you could, What are some upcoming events that people can take action? Any elections or efforts that Poder Latinx Georgia is leading in our community that we can plug right now for them?
I don't know. We both are like so ready to invite
Yes.
y'all. We're so ready to invite the community to come to our office. June 16th, we're hosting a phone bank to remind voters the day before of the primary election that's happening. So on June 16th is our phone bank that we're hosting. It is hybrid. We're doing it in our office, and we're inviting folks to connect on Zoom if they're unable to make it. This is going to be from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. We're going to have food in our office. It's going to be a time had. If you're not too familiar with the PSC election, we're going to provide more information about it. We're also going to provide a training on how to phone bank, how to make calls. We'll provide the training and all those materials. But apart from that, we are also hosting a community potluck on June 13th, and this is for the DACA anniversary and for Immigrant Heritage Month. So we're inviting community members to come out once again to just celebrate this time. And I'll pass it to Cristal, who can share more insights on those.
Thanks, Leslie. Yeah, so for June 16th, I do want to clarify, it is to celebrate Juneteenth. We're really excited about this event because we want to make sure that Black and Brown voices are heard. It's important that we recognize the populations that are affected by the Public Service Commission's decisions. And Georgia, especially the city of Atlanta, is known for its rich culture of Black history. And Juneteenth is an important day, so we want to make sure that we unite and we represent unity. And we would love to have our office full of beautiful, diverse people. Like I said, we are going to have food. So it'll be very fun. It'll be very engaging. It's a great place to network. And I know that to some people it may sound like, oh, phone bank, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can speak to someone on the phone. This sounds too personal, or maybe it's not enticing enough or fun. It sounds like fun enough. But as I told other volunteers, hosting a phone bank, being part of a phone bank is a great place to learn new skills because you're putting yourself out of your comfort zone. You'll be speaking to many people on the phone, and the first couple of times, you'll be reading off the script, but after a while, you'll just be like, I got this. Hello, ma'am. How are you? Oh, are you going to go out to vote? And you get to sometimes the people you talk to, they're super cool. They'll talk about, sorry, my dog was in the background screaming, and you'll be like, oh, you have a dog too? Me too. My dog is a black lab. And you get to bond with people over the phone. And it's amazing the stuff that you learn from our community on the phone bank. So yes, please come out, be part of our phone bank, come to our office, get to know the fun work that we do, because you also get a tour. You'll get to meet us in person, and I want to meet you guys. As for the potluck, I'm bringing Cuban sodas, so you got to be there. I'm excited for it. DACA is very important. My best friend was on DACA, so everything going on with it does hit personal to home. I personally don't understand. You've been here since you were 2 years old. You are American. This is your culture. This is your home. I don't understand. I don't believe in the whole thing about being frozen. And so we want to make sure that people are celebrated for their differences and celebrated that this is what they call home, because America is our home at the end of the day.
I want to add on June 21st, we are going to be part of a Pride event in Gwinnett County. This is going to be at the Thrasher Park. So come and find us at our booth. We're going to have some, good giveaway items to provide you all. And also, that same day, we have the privilege in the morning to be part of a fireside chat with Stacey Abrams. Be on the lookout for our content. Go follow us on social media. And hopefully in our next Eco Poder podcast, we can, debrief a little bit more about that.
As you can see, you guys, we're doing a lot. There's a lot going on this month. If anybody wants to join us for the Stacey Abrams meeting, please hit us up. DM the Instagram or DM any of our platforms, and they'll connect us to our Georgia office. We would love to have visitors with us because people who are elected like to hear from the constituents.
Yes, and I was just gonna say, like, y'all are doing amazing work. You're doing what they say, good action, good take, you're making the ball rolling on a lot of things. And I think if you're in Georgia and you're like, I want to do this, I don't know how to break into this, or I don't even know where to start, join us, hit us up. Like Cristal said, DM us. We are always looking for people to join us, whether you're just getting started in this work, if you're trying to learn more, you're trying to understand. We want you. We want folks on all different levels of organizing. Your activism is not too little, not too big for the space. We need folks that are directly impacted, firsthand seeing these issues. We need you to tell our elected leaders what we want, and we need you to help us reiterate what Poder Latinx is doing here. So, with that being said, I'm going to close this off by, again, if you haven't already, make sure that you sign our climate, oh my God, I'm struggling to speak at the end. I am going to welcome you again at the end of this episode, like always, to take action, sign the climate action campaign petition to save clean energy that we have going right now. It's super important that our leaders hear from us that we want to make sure clean energy stays, that no rollbacks happen. And again, I invite y'all to follow us on all platforms so that you can hear about a new episode, the Ecopoder, what the Georgia team is doing, how you can show up, what you can do. And then lastly, again, to join us in those interactive segments that we're going to be bringing to the podcast. We want to hear from y'all, right? Anything else that we can leave our audience with? I will say, if you made it to the end of this episode, go and comment down in the description of the episode, whether it be on YouTube or podcast, a heart emoji in green, so that we can know who's made it to the end. And shout out to you. We really, again, appreciate you.
Once again, thank you all, and make sure that y'all guys go out to vote. Early voting is happening. It started in May 27th all the way till June 13th. So go out to vote for the June 17th primary election.
Yeah, thank you all for joining us again. No, you're all good. I was going to say, I know you've been on here already once. We look forward to having y'all again with more information, hopefully in the near future. Hopefully all on wins and great news, right? Things to get informed and be activated. So yeah, los dejamos. Have a good one. Thank you for joining us today.
Yes.
Brought to you by Climate Action Campaign and Poder Latinx.